If you've been in the industry for a while, you've probably noticed it's getting harder and harder to find new stylists, estheticians, staff as a whole. There's a staff shortage in salons everywhere. And that starts at the source, right? Cosmetology schools. Fewer students are enrolling, and the ones who do face real challenges both during their education and when transitioning into the workforce. So whether you're a salon owner trying to find new talent, a stylist or esthetician wondering how education is evolving in the schools, or maybe someone who's considering cosmetology school yourself, you're going to love this episode today as we delve into the state of the cosmetology schools. Let's go. Welcome to the Salon Scoop, a podcast by Salon S.O.S. I'm your host, Scott Moon, the founder of Salon S.O.S., and I'm obsessed with helping salon professionals live their best life. In this show, we shop talk all things salon to bring you real-life stories, debates, entertainment, and inspiration to help you find happiness and success in this beautiful industry. If you work in the salon industry in any capacity, this podcast is open to you. So set down your scissors or rinse out that toner and let's get into it. Welcome back to another episode of the Salon Scoop, the podcast where we dive deep into the beauty industry, uncovering the insights, challenges, and best practices that matter most to salon professionals. I'm Scott Moon, your host, and today we're going to get the scoop on a topic that affects every single salon, stylist, esthetician, beauty entrepreneur out there, and that is the state of cosmetology schools today. Right? It's the source of everything in our industry. We're going to explore some of the challenges that schools are facing post-COVID, the differences between the private and the public sector of cosmetology schools. We're going to talk about the struggles that students face both during school and after graduation, and what, if anything, needs to change to help bring more talented professionals into the beauty industry. To help us unpack all of this, I am extremely grateful to have two incredible guests joining me today. One is the owner of a private cosmetology school in the US. The other is a coordinator and educator from a public government-run cosmetology program in Ontario, Canada. Super excited to have both of you on the show today for this conversation. Would you each do us the pleasure of, to our audience, of introducing yourselves? You can maybe tell us a bit about your experience, how long you've been in the industry, how you got into cosmetology school world, and whatever you feel is relevant to our listeners today.
Thank you, Scott. I'll go first. My name's Deanna Douglas, and I really loved hair from the time that I can remember. I've actually been in the industry since I was 14 years old. I've been licensed for 28 years. When I added that up, that was a bit of a shocker. And I would say that really honestly, this is an industry that you're a great learner. And if you love learning, then this is one that I think people can delve into and stay happy for their whole entire career.
Totally. How did you get into the cosmetology school world?
I actually went to Taiwan to teach English for a while. And while I was there, I was thinking, how can I get into teaching what I actually really love? And when I came back from Asia, I started coaching and teaching with a distributor. And then that gave me a little bit of knowledge about how people learn. And I was working kind of in salons and kind of mentoring and teaching within my own salon. And I really just loved it so much. And when our local college expanded the program to be a diploma, not just the apprenticeship offerings, I applied, and it's been 15 years now.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
thank you.
And we have the wonderful Michelle. Michelle, would you mind introducing yourself to our audience, please?
Yeah, my name's Michelle Duncan. I have been in the industry for 22 years now. It's been amazing. I grew up loving hair, and it naturally seemed the right place to go. And then while I was in school, I actually found out I love the learning environment so much. I didn't want to leave. Like it was, like Deanna said, this industry is amazing. And I found out then that I wanted to be an instructor. And so 20 years ago, I actually joined the team as an instructor. Through that journey, became Redken Color and Design certified. I also started dabbling in, state board and listening to those things and really trying to understand why we have to do the things that we do. And so, with that, I've been able to be on the committees of like the American Association of the Cosmetology Schools, their state relation and government relations committee, and I'm the vice president of our state Barbering and Cosmetology Schools Association, and I've actually been on the leadership team of our school for the past 9 years. So I'm just excited to be here today.
That's fantastic. Well, we have two amazing guests, like I said, with a wealth of expertise and experience in this field. So very excited to delve in. Let's jump in, and Michelle, I'll have you tackle this question first. It's kind of the big thing that's really hit us over the last sort of 4 or 5 years is how have you found that enrollment has changed, in your cosmetology school and what you're seeing in your surroundings over the last few years, especially post COVID?
Yeah, I'd love to talk about that. I did some digging because I wanted to make sure that my opinion was actually kind of surrounded in facts. And we actually have seen an increase in enrollment post-COVID. Everything kind of died off during that time, but part of it was because we were all shut down. And with our enrollment increasing, we've just really had to be very mindful of how the pandemic affected our students individually because everyone was affected in a different way. An example would be someone who maybe was super skilled at speaking face to face, person to person, having those conversations, and then now they have panic attacks at the thought of talking to someone in person. So again, it's just we've had to be very aware of that.
Totally makes
I
sense.
would actually, I would say the same, Scott. We've actually seen an increase as well. We had our highest wait list ever. And I know from my other college colleagues that they have experienced the same thing. I believe that COVID actually and us being closed down made people appreciate our industry more from a client perspective. And, people who sat at home on YouTube and watched videos and thought about what they should do, it didn't deter students at all from studying. And, I think we had our largest grad group during COVID because they had nothing else to do except for study. So I would, totally say what Michelle said is true is that the students come with a different set of learning difficulties, and the panic attacks and the mental health aspect has definitely been something that we've seen as well.
Lovely. All right. Well, I mean, it's a good start at least, for especially salon owners out there that are constantly like, wondering where the staff is. And there was definitely a fear that, the industry was going to see, a fall off as a result of the instability and the just security of it as related to the shutdowns across the pandemic. So have you
Mhm.
noticed any shift in the types of students that have been enrolling post-COVID? Or would you say it's the same as there was prior?
I think in Ontario, because there is some funding for students to go to school, it ebbs and flows depending on like what the grants are and what the different funding kind of models look like. But in a diploma program, we for the majority see that students come right out of high school. And, every once in a while we have mature students and students who have already graduated university and please their parents and then actually come and do what they really were passionate about doing. Those are always the best. But for as a whole, I wouldn't say that we've seen a change in student.
Yeah, I would agree there. I think that at any given moment, we have a very wide age range of students starting, 17 to
Mhm.
60 or 65 plus. Um, Students just out of high school or doing second, third career
Mhm.
changes. The only thing that I really have noticed different is that our students are now seeing the value in having multiple licenses, maybe getting their cosmetology license and massage therapy because they see the value in being able to offer more services. leads to a longevity in the career because there's less repetitive movements. And you also become a one-stop shop for your guests, which increases retention.
Mhm.
Interesting. Nice.
I would actually say, Scott, on that, I'm from British Columbia originally, and in the 90s, there was a recession kind of similar to what we're seeing right now. And there were, government funding for you to go back to school. So I actually didn't mention it, but I'm also an esthetician and I was a dual service provider and salon manager for many years. And I see huge value in that. And when students are interested in doing both hair and aesthetics, I'm a big proponent of that. Just it is separated in Canada as it's not so much in the States, but it's been a while since we've had any aesthetics included in the hairstyling curriculum. And I'm married to a massage therapist, so there's always that.
Well, and I say in all aspects of life, it's always good to give yourself options, right? So if people are, interested in um, studying multiple disciplines, getting licensed in multiple things, it just gives you more options as you progress throughout your career. So
Mhm.
can't hurt there. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the curriculum. You mentioned some of the changes, challenges with the learning and how people are learning and the stresses and maybe the mental health issues. What are the biggest changes that you've had to make to your school's curriculum in order to meet industry needs, or have you been able to? I mean, Deanna, I'll start with you because in the public
Sure.
system, maybe there's less flexibility on changing that, but
Yeah.
how has anything adapted to meet those changing needs?
For sure. So I think it was 2017 or 18, the RSOS, which is the Red Seal Occupational Standard. That's a national standard that's created by the Red Seal Standards Committee. And they are kind of the backbone for each province to base their curriculum. And we have a new curriculum coming out this year in Ontario. And I was invited to be an SME while they were creating that and give my feedback on things. So I know that prior to this new curriculum coming out, which was long overdue in 2012, like I mentioned, they removed makeup, manicure, hair removal, and they added in more chemical hair relaxing and extensions. So we, met that with, creating new courses and adding hours to our program. And at that time, it became a harmonized curriculum actually between our public schools and our private schools in Ontario. So we were all meant to lead a 1,500-hour program. It really gave, which I've learned is very unique, a prescription for this is how many, lab hours, 900 you should have, and 600 theory hours. We know that colleges and private schools definitely work differently, but in 2019, we saw kind of before, everything that happened around that time, um, in kind of culturally, people were starting to embrace their curly hair, and our curriculum was not meeting those needs. So we definitely, ahead of the game, kind of devised our own curriculum based on just embracing your curls, as well as the whole barbering movement, because our government hasn't created the trade of barbering in Ontario. So that limits what we can teach in school as well, from their perspective. So we yeah, I would say that we've been ahead of the curve, but I am very interested to see how the end result of this curriculum comes out, because there was a lot about working with students with neurodiversity, or clients with neurodiversity, having be able to have support for the students to have those good consultations with their clients when they're going through transformations in their life. And maybe that is an identity, transformation. Maybe that is like a midlife transformation, whatever it looks like. There needed to be more language and more kind of backbone to that part as well.
Hmm. Interesting. Michelle, I assume that you have a lot more flexibility in the private academy world. What correct me if I'm wrong, but and explain a little bit what changes have you made on the curriculum side post COVID to adapt to kind of the changing learning needs?
Yeah, thank you. We have similar guidelines to what Deanna was speaking of. Like we have a breakdown of hours and how many hours need to be taught with haircutting, et cetera. And so The approach that we've taken is that there's always going to be a stronger emphasis on business training first. Business meaning we need to get you prepared for your first day after graduation and being able to succeed in the salon setting. So we have like business systems in place that mimic level systems in a real salon, and our students get to like role play through those and exist through those in their clinical classroom. So that allows them to learn communication skills as well as technical skills while growing through those stages. They get to learn, real life skills practicing on real guests, and each guest is an experience that's going to help set them up for success after school. And that business training really ties directly to an urgency that we place on ourselves to ensure that the student has the tools they need to make the right choice and placement when they graduate. Because if a student ends up at the wrong salon for them, the likelihood of them staying in this industry like plummets dramatically.
Absolutely. What let's stick in the private world. What percentage would you say of the total curriculum, either in terms of hours or credits, are tied to business training versus technical training?
Yeah. Um, Gosh, that's a really good question. I mean, I want to say that we talk about it 75% of the time. Like as I'm teaching the haircut, I'm also talking about why it's important to recommend the right rebook time. So that's like the business training behind the technical thing. So it's a cohesive conversation that happens simultaneously.
Got it. As opposed to a specific sort of thing. Deanna, how about in the public curriculum? How do you see that percentage of sort of business versus technical?
Yeah, I would say the same thing. We do have courses carved out called Entrepreneur 1 and 2, where they are learning kind of marketing, sales, as well as like business development. And we do that in the very beginning, get them set up with social media and really try to bring the light that, you are your own kind of brand and you have to build that from the very beginning. So I think, schools need to understand and do a good job of that, because I think it's an expectation coming out of the salon. I don't think people are spending the dollars as an owner that they once were on advertising and marketing their salons. They're really dependent on the individuals there kind of doing that for them.
And how this is maybe a quick Pandora's box, and I don't want to go too deep on it, but I would say the vast majority of salon owners that I speak to on a day-to-day basis, feedback is most always that they feel students coming in, to their salon, just having graduated, do not have enough of the, sort of business sense, marketing skills. How would you sort of respond to that? Do you feel that what's happening in the schools is enough? Is it sort of the wrong expectations that maybe salon owners have, or how can we address that better, you think?
I'll go.
Sure.
I think that we are constantly like taking that feedback because we ask salon owners like what is it that you need, what is it that you're seeing, and they'll give us that feedback. And yeah, you're right, that putting yourself out there in, whether it's the social media world or back, when I learned you went door to door and handed out your card, like being able to put yourself out there is super huge. And so we have students create their professional social media accounts while they're in school and practice using them. And so, for example, when TikTok started getting bigger, it's like, okay, now let's learn how to play with TikTok, so that they have that experience. But the other key to that, and we say this on a day-to-day basis, is that if you take the tools and the teachings that your educators are giving you and you practice them, then you're going to have the skills to succeed. So, the ball also is in the students' court to like really take it and run with it so they're fully prepared for their time outside of school.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I can really only speak to, our experience in when we were giving feedback about the curriculum. We actually had suggested like maybe a little less like owning your own business curriculum and actually seeing the asset that you are within a business and, focusing more on, how you can help the owner to create a good business. You're going to learn from doing that, what makes a great business. We don't have to delve into the numbers as much, but they should know what their numbers bring as a value in the salon, and whether that be in retail sales or whether it be in services, and how to do add-ons and upgrades. And I I would be shocked actually to hear that from our salon owners, that they thought that our students weren't coming out with that, because I feel like the schools are doing actually a really good job of that. But like Michelle said, they have to use it and promote it for themselves. But it's something I talk about, for interview skills and their resume, even to know the value that they bring to a business.
Yeah, and I mean, I would speak to it also. I took marketing in university at a pretty high level school,
Mhm.
and came out, and my first job, I wasn't an expert.
Mhm.
But
Yeah,
the company that hired me, as a graduate from, with a major in marketing, everybody has expectations. And I believe, salon owners have expectations that people are going to come out of school, and you've had the education, you've had the
right.
training, and you should be ready to go from day one. But it's still
Mm.
daunting, to sort of be out there in your first, sort of career experience, and start doing it, and be doing it at the level of someone who
Mhm.
has had 5 years experience, 10 years
Yeah.
experience, 15 years experience. So I think we have to temper the expectations a little bit as well, and
Mhm.
not just expect that people are going to be running at 100% as they hit the ground on day one, but that the salon provides an environment, and a culture of continued sort of
Mhm.
learning and adaptation, and sharing best practices from potentially other service providers who have had some more experience, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I usually use the analogy, when students are in school, it's like they're in the kindergarten of hairstyling. And then, they get out and it's like elementary school for the first couple of years. And then they really learn how to like do some research and, kind of develop who they really are, like when you're in high school. And, you can't expect a lot, I think, in the first 5 years, in the sense of what you're saying. They're not a master at anything. We don't make people master stylists in the first 5 years, because they're not, and it takes a long time. And I know our system is a bit different in Canada in that we have apprenticeships, and that's something I'm aware that they're talking about in the States, but that it hasn't actually been approved.
Makes sense. Okay.
Mhm.
Anything different to add, Michelle? Or
No, I agree with what Deanna was saying.
yeah,
I can't
yeah.
add any more to that.
All right, sounds good. So let's delve into some funding, because there's some differences, obviously, in how public schools are funded and private schools are funded. How would you, Michelle, on the let's say on the private side, how does the funding get set, right? Get established, and how does that funding actually impact the quality of education that you are able to provide within the private setting?
Yeah, our students are able to qualify for, in the United States, there's the direct loan program and Pell Grants. And so it's really based on their level of need that is established by the government. And so we are able to accept that, and our tuition, and we keep it as low as possible to be able to still provide an amazing education, but we also don't want our students leaving with a tremendous amount of student loan debt, because you don't want that. We don't want that for them. And then we also are constantly helping our students, like our finance team, they help our students seek out grants and scholarships to help pay for tuition as well. So we don't want our students to be stressing about that while they're going through school, because they have enough to worry about. A lot of times they're worrying about paying their bills and how they're going to pay their rent, and we're very open about those conversations so that we can help them navigate their time in school successfully.
Mhm.
Do you find, Michelle, I'm going to come back to you. Do you find there's a big difference in the tuition costs at private schools versus the public schools in your region?
I actually don't have anything to compare it to, because like in our state, there's um 20, I think it's 21 private schools, and there's only one public
Hmm.
program.
Mhm.
And And like in community college, like tuition is priced completely differently than private schools.
Mhm.
Fair enough. Deanna, maybe can you speak to that? And you're in the public system, how does funding impact the quality of education overall? And then do you find there's a large gap between the tuition costs for the public versus the private?
Yeah, in Ontario right now, there's actually been a tuition freeze for some time that was just approved again. And I believe that before they froze tuition, they actually rolled it back and by 10%. And so I heard the other day that we're working on like a 2017 tuition rate, which if you think about, the amount that our whole lives have, cost us over the last 8 years, it's completely um, affected a lot of things. There are a lot of changes that are happening. Prices are going up everywhere for us to buy the products as well. And so when you have less tuition coming in to work with, but you have to actually pay for more, it definitely affects the quality of things, I would say. Um, but as far as the students, we too, obviously it's public, so they can apply for student loans and there are grants actually through the apprenticeship system as well when they complete their apprenticeship. But I think that there's a lot of students that have to work really, while they're going to school and with a 1,500-hour program, like in our last semester, they're working in school on school work 37 hours a week. And so then they have to work on top of that. So I think it really does affect them just personally with all of that responsibility.
Hmm. Yeah, that's
Mhm.
that's a great point.
Mhm.
Um, Deanna, what's something that you wish more industry professionals understood about the public system overall?
Yeah, so earlier when we talked about curriculum and I had just mentioned that barbering, wasn't a, a, um a named trade. So they actually amalgamated hairstyling and barbering in the 90s in Ontario. And it's different in every province. But currently, I believe that there's only 2 or 3 provinces that actually recognize barbering as a trade. And therefore, they have their own curriculum and you can just become a barber. So in Ontario, for you to work legally as a barber, you should have went to hairstyling school or you should be a registered apprentice and learning from someone about all aspects. So, it is one of those things that I really wish that there could be movement on that, just so that we could maybe train more barbers and have it a recognized trade, because I think that there's a lot of benefit to that. But I also am a big advocate for not pigeonholing yourself into one area and being able to choose after you're finished if you want to do barbering or color or, extensions or curly hair, whatever it may be. So, I think that when students come for hairstyling, they're often a student that maybe struggled through high school because like school wasn't really their thing, and then we get them and you see these like light bulb moments. And so just being an instructor in that environment has been really cool because you get to meet some really nice people who want to make people's uh, day and they want to help people, and and it just feels like they're kind of where they should always have been. It's a really cool industry to be in, and in education, I feel very fortunate to kind of be working with the next generation.
Yeah, I can feel the passion emanating through you, which is
Yeah.
wonderful.
Yes.
Um, Michelle, how about you on the public side? What do you wish more industry professionals understood about the private education school system?
Yeah, and this actually applies to everyone, not necessarily just individual or people in the industry, but like I think it's key to know that private schools, they're owned and operated by individuals or groups of individuals who are incredibly passionate about the industry that they provide the training for. They're your neighbors, they're members of your community and active participants in your community. And that term private really applies to the type of corporation. It's a tax term. Every member of our leadership teams personally invested in ensuring that our students have a great experience when they're at school. We want our students to graduate and become successful members of the beauty and wellness industry. And we all spend a tremendous amount of time like actively participating in the learning environment, gathering feedback, and essentially pivoting the training to continue to prepare students for their time after school.
Nice. Okay, well, let's talk about a little bit their students, their time after school. What feedback do you get, Michelle, from students as to the hardest part of transitioning from school to actually, working now officially in the industry in whatever capacity they're doing that?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is often in the time that they're with us, they start at, knowing nothing and they get to where they're learning things and they're getting better at practicing and we're preparing them for like an entry level position. They're not going to be a master. And we share that all the time. Like you're not graduating here a master. It takes like 10,000 hours to become masterful at something. So we're preparing them for this. And so by the time they graduate, they're like big fish, little pond. Like I'm ready to take on the world. This is amazing. Like, yeah. And then they go into the salon and they're like little fish in big pond. And not everybody understands, like we already talked about, they're not masters. Like
Mhm.
they need like someone to like put their arm around and be like, let's do this together. Let me help you succeed.
Mhm.
I think the other big thing that isn't talked about enough is, financial literacy in terms of income. And a student needs to graduate knowing like how much is it going to cost for them to live their life daily? Like, what do my bills encompass? And then they need to be communicating that even during the interviewing process with the salon owner with what they're offering. Because let's say I need to make $50,000 a year. We're just going to use that, but I'm going to a salon that charges $5 for a haircut. The likelihood of me being able to make what I need to survive isn't there, which then means I'm set myself up for failure and I'm
Mhm.
probably going to leave the industry. So there is an urgency in being able to honestly communicate about that.
Mhm.
Love that. Great. Deanna, what do you see in the public sector as kind of the hardest part for students transitioning from school to work?
I would agree with everything that Michelle said for sure in the sense that, they get out and are shocked and humbled very quickly. And so I would say probably finding like the right type of salon for them and maybe doing a little bit of work before you just accept that first job. So we talk a lot about, what kind of questions should you ask the salon owner, in the interview because you want to get into the right place, the right environment that's going to be for you. And the financial literacy part is a huge piece of it. I 100% concur on finding the right place for many different reasons, but the finances are definitely a part of that. And then, I love it when I bring back alumni to guest speak and they tell the students, just enjoy your time here. Don't be in a hurry to get out. It's like the parents, just enjoy your time because, it is work when you leave here. And we're almost at the end of this year and you start to see that antsiness about, people will realize that in a month from now or a little more, they're not going to be getting up and coming to school every day. They're going to be going to work and you can't decide not to do that or else you lose your job. So, I always tell students like you have to treat school like it is a job because it's preparing you for the responsibility of getting up and going to work every day.
And what can we do on the flip side? Because salon owners, if given the choice, most of them
Mhm.
would love to have a service provider that comes in that already has some experience, that already has a clientele that can kind of be up and running um, quickly. I always encourage salon owners to get students because you can
Mhm.
teach them, you can mold them into your culture. You can really, I believe there's you don't have the baggage that comes along with somebody that's, has some experience in a different environment. But salon owners don't have time, to do. They find that it can be a hassle for, having to train a brand newbie, from school. So how can the salon owners maybe better support the recent graduates to help that transition happen? Let's talk about it from the ownership standpoint. Deanna, why don't you start on this one?
Sure. I think, reading a book, doing a little bit of work on, how people learn is a really important part of actually training someone within your salon. And then, you know, taking the time to introduce those that you bring on into your salon about the culture and your expectations and being upfront about things. And, keeping a really, I think, healthy culture around, professional development. And that might be financial literacy. But, I think the best teams are those that learn together, that do things outside of the salon together. And, I think gone are the days of people staying in the same job forever. And so, being a cheerleader for people, even if, they've worked for you for a long time and then they go out on their own or start another salon, um, you have to keep good relationships with people. We're in a big city here, but in small towns especially, it's just good to be positive and to cheer people on, and you're going to get so much more out of people than treating them like there's a hierarchy, or that they're yours or a piece of property. I think that owners, as much as, it is your baby, your business is your baby, you have to think of everyone on the team as a part of, the family.
Hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Mhm.
to add on that, I think we know that it's a time, like there's time that has to be put into the hiring process and effort. And just some things that we recommend when we're working with salon owners is like be present in your local school, like get to know the educators, stop in to say hi, guest speak, participate in the career fairs. Because if you build the rapport ahead of time, if you take the time to build the rapport ahead of time, with not only students and staff, you're actually going to find the right person to come into your salon.
Mhm.
That allows us to, when, for example, a student is looking for a place, we can be like, oh my gosh, you have to meet Susie's from Salon XYZ. They're a great salon company. I think you're really going to fit in with their culture. And then they can hire before the student graduates, and whatever like culture training or whatever that needs to happen before they actually start on their first day, a lot of that can be done ahead of time so that they're ready to hit the ground running once they get that license in hand.
Yeah, that's true. There's been a lot of messaging this month, as we have a new group going out soon, because you can kind of see where certain students would fit best, right? And you meet those salon owners and kind of their vibe and their culture. And so helping to make those, meetups is an important thing. And yeah, I would say, career fairs and things like that, they're great to be a part of. And Melissa, you mentioned that you guys have like an industry that you go to and ask questions. I would also say get involved in your local schools. They all have program advisory committees, that they want to hear from industry about what is needed. And that often turns into guest speaking and things like that.
Nice. Very cool. There's so many questions I want to ask in so little time. Uh, uh, what I want to do right now with each of you is just a super quick rapid fire section. I'm going to throw at you a couple of quick questions. I just want to know, it could be a one word answer, just kind of a quick thought about it. But your opinion, Deanna, do students from private schools have different career outcomes than students from public schools?
I don't think so. I think it's, again, each school and what they kind of introduce to students. We have guest speakers from, cruise ships, from resorts, from, different distributors. I think it's just who you kind of open yourself up to introduce the students to.
Michelle?
Yeah, same. I think that no matter what school you go to, you're going to learn the fundamentals. Like you're
Mhm.
going to learn them. But then it's the coaching, the mentoring that the staff does with each student that helps them, prepare and pick the place that's going to suit them best.
Mhm.
Nice. Okay. Michelle, do you think licensing requirements help or hurt the industry in terms of attracting and keeping new talent from schools?
Scott, this could be an entire podcast in itself, just so
I
you
know.
know.
So you can just answer with one word, help or hurt, and then
Help.
we might do that sometime.
Sign
Yeah.
me up. Help.
Yeah.
Deanna?
100% help. Yes.
Okay, we're on the same page. Licensing helps, but yes, it's a massive issue, whether it be state by state or province by province, and creates a lot of inequalities in the industry and the expectations. So that's a whole topic on its own. I agree. Um, Deanna, what's the number one hurdle that you feel cosmetology students face while they're in school?
Financial.
Fair enough. Michelle?
Yep, that. And then the second one is support from their inner circle about their career choice. There are still misconceptions that, trade schools are not the best route to take right after graduation. And I think we can all state that that's really wrong.
Again, this is a rapid fire question, but what could either schools or the industry do as a whole to make cosmetology a more attractive career choice that's supported?
Yeah,
I
this
think,
is tricky. Oh, sorry.
You go, Deanna.
Okay, sorry about that. I think it's tricky because, there is a whole echelon of salons and barbershops and cosmetology out there, in the sense that, there's $5 haircuts and there's $100 haircuts. And I think that the biggest kind of misnomer is that you can't make a good living. Exactly what Michelle talked about before. This is an industry that 15 years ago, my top stylist was making 80K, and I can guarantee you she's probably doubled that in the last 15 years. So I do think that a lot of people still have a stigma that, you've sold out, your education, or that you're not going to actually make a career, but there's a lot of money that can be made.
Question is,
Yeah.
how do we get the message out? So, Michelle, what do you think schools or the industry can do to make cosmetology more attractive?
I think number one, exactly what Deanna said, but number two, I think we need to just be really vocal about what it's like to work in the beauty and wellness industry. Like, we are like the last industry that isn't mandated by having to use gloves. And so, for example, a scalp massage is could potentially be the only human contact somebody has with another human in their month. And that is like, that's healing for the soul. But because of that, service providers are going to be very prone to burnout if they do not practice self-care. Self-care is not a luxury, it has to be prioritized.
Love it. All right, I have two last questions. We can spend a little bit more time, but let's start with you on this one, Michelle. What changes would you like to see in cosmetology education over the next, let's say, 5 years, 5 to 7 years, sort of midterm?
Yeah, that was actually a really good question. And I looked this statistic up because I heard the industry is growing. Heard it, but wanted to hear a fact. And actually, the US Department of Labor states that our industry alone is projected to grow 7% between 2023 and 2033, which is faster than an average industry growth. So it's going to be like an additional like 45,000 jobs. So we have to be ready for that by continuing to evolve our training to meet the needs of where our students are at when they go into school. So we can't train the same way 5 years from now, the way we were doing it 5 years ago. We just have to, everyone has to keep evolving to meet the needs of the industry.
Makes sense. Deanna, what changes would you like to see in cosmetology school education in this midterm?
Yeah, I'd like to see more collaboration with other healthcare professionals. We've been working with a group that has hairstylists as the first line of defense against like scalp disorders, different things that, your hairstylist sees. Maybe you've never looked at the top of your head or the back of your neck, or, so I think those more collaborations like that, because a hairstylist is a really essential person, and they get to touch people exactly like Michelle just said. I was like, yes, that's exactly what I was going to say. Because, and again, COVID really made that, kind of come to light. But I would say the other thing is, like I mentioned earlier, more kind of curriculum changes around, the inclusivity and transgender clients, neurodivergent individuals, and those with various life changes. I think that we need to be emotionally and supportive ready for our clients that are sitting in our chair. And, we've always said that, a hairstylist hears more than most people's partners. And so, knowing what to do with that information. And I would also say the self-care at the end of the day, really taking care of yourself. And the last one is really just, looking after yourself and being empathetic to everyone and their experiences, and not being judging others, because those others are what are putting money in the bank at the end of the day. And so the more information you can fill your mind with and be open to, you're going to be a really successful hairstylist.
Love it.
Mm.
Those would be amazing, amazing changes if we can incorporate all of those and help set people up for success. Let's close with a final question here is, what advice do you have or would you give to someone who's considering enrolling in cosmetology school today? Well, let's start with Deanna and we'll finish with Michelle for this one.
Sure. I'm always shocked when I have to say this, but you should like people. You should like touching people. You should like getting to know people and really finding out about them, because you're there to listen to them and not for them to listen to you. It used to actually say that at the beginning of our textbook years ago when I first started teaching, is that it was 80% listening and 20% skills. And it is 100% correct still today.
Nice. We have 2 ears and 1 mouth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Absolutely. Deanna, that's exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah.
You have to love people and you have to have a
Mm-hmm.
servant's heart in order to succeed in this
Mm-hmm.
industry, because
Yeah.
there is nothing about this industry that's about you. It's about the guest that's in your chair.
Yeah.
Wow. That was a big open question, and you both had the exact same answer. It's clearly true for those out there listening and considering the industry. That might be a great thing for you to sort of connect with to know if it's right for you. What a fantastic conversation today. I want to thank both of you, Deanna and Michelle, so much for taking the time to share your insights and to be on the episode with us today. It's a challenging topic. I get asked about it all the time. Cosmetology schools, it's the future of our industry, and it's obviously so important. It's clear that whether you're in a private school or a public school, the beauty industry, the good news is it's evolving, it's growing, and we all have a role to play as beauty professionals in shaping its future, right? And we've heard some of the recommendations and changes that both Michelle and Deanna, would love to see. We all have a role to play in that and making our industry, right, appealing and attractive to more people to come towards. So if you're a salon owner struggling to find new talent, I hope that this episode maybe gave you a better understanding of what today's students are facing in terms of challenges, and how, as a salon owner, you can better support them as during that transition into the workforce. If you're a student, right, maybe considering a career in cosmetology, now is obviously a very exciting time to jump in with the growth that we project, and the industry needs passionate, skilled professionals who love people and who have that servant mentality. So I hope that everyone has been able to capture something. I'd love to hear your thoughts on today's discussion. Those listening, if you think cosmetology schools are preparing students well enough, right, for the real world salon life, what do you feel from the salon side? What changes would you like to see in the future? Feel free to join the conversation. Connect with us on social at salon.s.o.s. You can always shoot us an email, info@salonsos.ca. We would love to have this conversation with you. And of course, if you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to leave a review or share it with a fellow beauty professional that can gain some additional insights. Your support helps us to continue to bring you the latest insights and important conversations in our industry. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in to the Salon Scoop today. Thank you again, Deanna and Michelle. Until next time, keep creating, keep learning, and keep making this industry amazing.
Thanks, Scott.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to the Salon Scoop podcast. This show is produced by Salon S.O.S, a digital marketing agency by industry professionals for industry professionals. If you want simple and affordable solutions for any of your salon marketing needs, such as websites, client loyalty, Google search rankings, social media, or more, come visit us at salonsos.ca or on Instagram at salon.s.o.s. If you want to hear more episodes like this and help us continue to bring the industry great content, it would mean so much to us if you would support us in one of the following ways. Either share this episode with one other industry professional and rate the show on Spotify or write us a quick review on Apple Music. We want to hear your feedback. If you have follow-up questions or ideas for future episodes, please reach out. DM us on Instagram at salonus.s.o.s or hit us up on our website again at salonsos.ca. Again, thanks so much for listening. Now go get your hustle on, keep smiling, and we'll catch you on our next episode.